Christian II, born on July 1, 1481, at Nyborg Castle in Denmark, remains one of the most enigmatic and controversial figures in Scandinavian history. His reign as King of Denmark and Norway, 1513 to 1523, and briefly as King of Sweden, 1520 to 1521, was marked by ambitious reforms, brutal acts, and ultimately his downfall and lifelong imprisonment. His legacy is sharply divided, remembered as a tyrant in Sweden and a champion of the common people in Denmark. Early life and ascent to power. Born to King Hans of Denmark and Christina of Saxony, Christian II grew up in a period of complex political dynamics. The Kalmar Union, which united the crowns of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden under a single monarch, was perpetually strained by Swedish aspirations for independence. Christian's early life saw him participate in his father's military campaigns, gaining experience in both diplomacy and warfare. He served as Viceroy of Norway from 1506, where he began to display his strong, often autocratic, governing style, clashing with the Norwegian nobility. Upon his father's death in 1513, Christian ascended to the thrones of Denmark and Norway. However, his succession was contingent on a handfæstning, a royal charter that granted significant privileges to the nobility, effectively giving them considerable control over the government through the Rigsråd, Council of the Realm. Christian, a proponent of centralized power, soon sought to circumvent these limitations, setting the stage for a prolonged struggle with the aristocracy. Reign and reforms. Christian II's reign was characterized by bold, often radical reforms aimed at strengthening the monarchy and improving the lives of commoners. He appointed commoners and merchants to positions of power, bypassing the traditional noble elite. His commercial policies were designed to boost trade and limit the influence of the powerful Hanseatic League, an economic and defensive confederation of merchant guilds and market towns from Central and Northern Europe. He also sought to reform the legal system and improve social conditions, particularly for the peasantry, whom he aimed to liberate from their near-serf status. These reforms, while progressive for their time, further alienated the nobility and powerful factions within the church, the Stockholm bloodbath and the end of the Union. The most infamous event of Christian's reign was the Stockholm bloodbath in November 1520. After finally conquering Sweden and being crowned its king, Christian promised a general amnesty to all who had opposed him. However, shortly after his coronation, he orchestrated the execution of over 80 prominent Swedish nobles and bishops, including the exhumation and burning of the body of his chief rival, Sten Sture the Younger. This act of extreme brutality earned him the lasting epithet Christian the Tyrant, Christian Tyrann in Sweden, and ignited a fierce rebellion led by Gustav Vasa, which ultimately led to Sweden's definitive secession from the Kalmar Union in 1523. Downfall and imprisonment. The Stockholm bloodbath proved to be a critical turning point. The widespread outrage and the continued defiance in Sweden, coupled with Christian's heavy taxation and his disregard for noble privileges, eroded support for him in Denmark and Norway. In 1523, a revolt erupted in Jutland, led by his uncle, Frederick of Holstein, who was subsequently proclaimed King Frederick I. Forced to flee, Christian sought exile in the Netherlands, hoping to gain support from his brother-in-law, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. After years in exile and a failed attempt to reclaim his throne in Norway in 1531, Christian II was captured by Danish forces in 1532. He spent the remainder of his life, nearly 27 years, imprisoned, first at Sonderborg Castle and later at Kalundborg Castle. He died on January 25, 1559, at the age of 77. Legacy. Christian II's legacy remains complex and contested. In Sweden, he is almost solely remembered for his treachery and the horrific Stockholm bloodbath, a symbol of Danish oppression. In Denmark, however, his image is more nuanced. While his autocratic tendencies and failures are acknowledged, he is also seen by some as a king who genuinely tried to improve the lives of the common people and challenge the entrenched power of the aristocracy and church. His attempts at reform, though ultimately unsuccessful in his lifetime, foreshadowed later social and political changes in Scandinavia. His turbulent reign vividly illustrates the challenges of consolidating power and implementing sweeping reforms in a period of profound social and political upheaval.